Let's do this. Let's do it.
All right. Testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Hey there, Tim friends, and welcome back to the channel. So, it's been a minute, and I wanted to just sort of check in, catch up with all of you guys, see how you're doing, update what's been going on in my life, primarily that we just returned from our very first trip ever to Europe. We were in Italy for 1 week and then France for the next week, and just wanted to sort of digest, brain dump, talk about all the things that happened, get my sort of perspective while things are still fresh, and then after that kind of wind down while talking about the channel, some updates, some more copyright stuff, and just what's coming up, what you can expect in the new year, new Tim Thoughts. So you could definitely consider this as the next episode, third episode, I think, of the Thoughtcast, the unofficial Tim Thoughts Podcast. And as usual, I will drop a bunch of timestamps down below in case you want to just skip around or just see what's on the agenda for today. Feel free to do so. But with that being said, why don't we just jump right into it? Whew. Okay, so here we are. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the trip to Europe. Like I mentioned, this was our very first trip ever across the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to the land of the Europeans. So we spent a week in Rome with 1 day in Florence and then a week in Paris. So where do I even begin? I think I'll just kind of try and go through things a little bit chronologically and kind of just we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I do have like a rough skeleton of things I want to talk about, but we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully it'll make sense. And I'll definitely be like intercutting clips along the way so you can hopefully get an idea of what I'm talking about. And of course, all of this stuff you'll hear about in much more detail with the upcoming Tim in Europe series. That title's just a work in progress. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it will come eventually, and you'll see all of these things in much greater detail and the places we went and the food we ate and so on and so on. All the sorts of regular stuff you can expect from the Tim vlogs. So, I did consider doing a live stream like I did in the past with my Japan trips, but I don't know. I felt like I kind of tend to meander and wander around a little bit, so I wanted to just film this video and be able to cut it down for you and give you, the most relevant and best little bits, though I'm sure this video will be kind of long anyway, but thanks for sticking around. Yeah. So anyway, Europe, why don't we get started? So the first place to start, I guess, would be the plane ride over, which in itself was crazy. Like, it would be crazy enough because it was a flight from LAX to Paris and then the layover from Paris to Rome. But on our way to Paris, about halfway through the 12-hour flight, we hear this gigantic commotion happening in the section right behind us, and we're at the end of our section, so it's about 10 feet away or something like that. And I don't know, some guy was really drunk and belligerent, and I don't know what happened. Someone tried to step in, and then he ended up attacking another guy on the plane. And there was a family there with these 3 little girls, and they all started screaming. You see flight attendants running back to that part of the plane. You hear these announcements over the loudspeaker, but they're all in French because we flew Air France, so we don't even know what's going on. Honestly, it was pretty scary. We didn't know if the plane was in danger, if someone's trying to hijack it, or if someone brought a weapon or something. But I guess apparently a couple of guys, just passengers on the plane, stepped up. They had some kind of martial arts training and took him down. They were able to secure him and put him in some kind of brig somewhere for the rest of the flight. Man, it was insane. Once we got there, the police came on board and arrested him and escorted him off. Paramedics came to help out the guy that he attacked. It was wild, man. I don't recommend ever being on a flight like that. Not that you can avoid it, but it was not cool. And it was a crazy experience. So that's one way to start a trip, but we had our layover at Charles de Gaulle in Paris and then went to Rome, which was a relatively short flight from there. I think it was like 2 hours. So it felt like very short compared to the super long haul flight from LAX. We finally landed there. We took a taxi into the city because we just didn't want to deal with, finding out what train to take, transfers, where to get off, if there were like strikes, because apparently in Rome, the railway workers and the bus drivers are constantly going on strike. So you're not exactly sure when things will be running on what day and so on, unless you are vigilant about checking the little info panels that are posted like on Google or in other travel apps. So anyway, just to avoid all of that hassle, we took a taxi into the city, which was 55 euros flat rate from the airport directly to where we stayed, which was right by the Colosseum in the Monte neighborhood. And then once we got there, our Airbnb, it's inside of this old building and there's like this teeny tiny elevator. It's so small. You can fit 2 people with no luggage or 1 person with 1 luggage. Like it really is that tiny. And from what I understand, small elevators like that are common all over Europe. But I guess what made this one extra scary was that it was clearly very old and like very sort of like manual looking. It didn't look updated at all. It looked like at least 30, 40 years old. The door was kind of creaky. It made all these noises. The buttons are just like super manual looking. I don't know, but we never got stuck in it, so that's good. One time we couldn't use it for some reason, but we didn't really have any issues with the elevator in general. It just looked kind of scary. So we got to our place and it had like a nice little view and you really felt like, you're in the city and you're living like a local, which was nice. That's sort of one of my favorite parts of traveling. And the location was pretty cool because it was literally right next to the Colosseum. Once you go down and walk outside the doors, the Colosseum is right there at the end of the street, like a 1-minute walk and you're at the Colosseum, which was kind of crazy. So it was really cool when we go out early in the morning or come back like a little later at night. It's like totally empty and it was like pretty cool, pretty neat to see the Colosseum in that way, not so like bustling and full of tourists and stuff. But yeah, our first night we got some pizza, which was honestly kind of disappointing, but we did get some good ones later. And we got some gelato, which was awesome, which ended up being actually one of the lesser gelatos of the trip. But for our first night there, it was awesome. And then, so one thing I do want to talk about as far as Rome is concerned is the coffee culture. It was a big culture shock coming from America and even like Japan. Like it's totally different there. In Italy, cafes, or at least what we consider cafes here, are called bars. So if you go to a bar, it's actually like a coffee place, coffees and pastries. And the way generally it works there is people just get their coffee very quickly. You walk up to the bar, you order whatever it is, espresso, macchiato, Americano, whatever it is, and then maybe a pastry, and they just give it to you right there, right at the bar. And you're supposed to stand there and drink it and eat your pastry and just kind of quickly, get it done and get out. Depending on the place, some places do have limited table seating. And of course, if you sit at a table, you are more than welcome to take your time, sip on your coffee, eat your breakfast/pastry, but there will be an upcharge. Whether the menu costs more or there's like a table charge, they do charge you more to sit there and eat as opposed to just standing at the bar, which makes sense, right? You take more time, you take more resources, someone has to serve you, etc. So most of the time we opted to just stand at the bar and drink our coffee and eat our little pastry and get out of there. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, I think. The nice part is that, it's very fast. So in the morning, generally, especially when you're traveling, you have a lot of stuff to do. So it's nice to be able to just go in, grab your coffee, drink it, eat your pastry, drink it, you're done, you pay, you walk out of there, boom, presto, you're gone. But on the other hand, sometimes you do just want to, kind of like take your time, which they do offer, table seating at some places. But the thing that was sort of a culture shock for us was the way that, especially in Rome, we felt. It was a little different in Paris, but I think it's sort of a European thing, probably like an Italian culture also, where like, the service industry is not really geared towards making you feel accommodated and welcome. And like in America, they're generally, your service will be very gracious and they'll check up on you often and try and make idle chit chat, which honestly, we don't always enjoy that, but that's just sort of how it works here. But in Europe, it seems much more the case that they are just doing their job. Like, if you don't know what you want, they don't really want to like putz around and like help you figure out every little thing on the menu. Like, they're busy. They're trying to serve, like 20 other people, and there's only like 4 or 5 people in a medium-sized, restaurant or cafe. Or like in a small place, there may be only just 1 or 2 people just serving everybody. So they really don't have the luxury of time to be like spending every little moment with you, asking if everything's okay, asking how your day is going, what you want to do next. And so I could imagine to a lot of Americans, it can come off as like rude and abrupt, but I really understood over time that that's just how the culture is there. And then that sort of goes double, not only with the cafes, but also the restaurants. And of course, it does depend on the place you go, the people you meet, the kind of time you go there, how busy they are, etc. But there is a very stark difference in the culture, the service culture between America and Europe. They're just more direct in Europe. And I wouldn't say at all that that's a bad thing. It's just a different thing. Oh yeah. And the one last thing I wanted to talk about as far as the cafe culture in Italy, we went to this one particular place called Regoli Pasticceria. And I think that is sort of like the quintessential pastry shop in Rome, which I'm really glad we went there because we got their maritozzo and their sfogliatella. The maritozzo is like a super fluffy, like brioche type of bun, just absolutely stuffed with whipped cream. And the sfogliatella is like the super, super flaky, crispy, flaky pastry stuffed with like a custard and cream. It's similar to a croissant in its flakiness, but the flakes are much crunchier and crispier and harder. Like a croissant is flaky, but it's very soft. The sfogliatella is more of a crunchy, flaky. Definitely, that would be like one of my top recommendations in Rome in general, is that place, Regoli Pasticceria. So go there if you're ever in Rome. And then I guess continuing on the sort of food train, of course the pasta in Italy is just on another level. Like, eating pasta in America compared to Italy is like, what are we even doing here, man? Like, you think you have al dente pasta here, but it's still soft compared to Italy. But it's not like the pasta in Italy is hard. It just feels like the proper amount of chew to it to really accentuate, the sauce and the ingredients that they use. And, of course, they're like artisans there, right? A lot of these places have been open for like decades, if not like 100 years or more. So it's really something else to go to actual Italy and try the pasta. We had this amazing carbonara and what was the other one called? I forget what it's called. But we had this amazing pasta at this place called Nuova Piazzetta. And then my favorite pasta of the entire trip was this black truffle carbonara I had in Florence, which was on a whole other level. I watched the guy make it. He makes this super rich looking carbonara sauce. Interestingly, there in Florence, the pasta was a lot thinner than in Rome. I don't know if that's a regional thing or just that particular location. But then he takes like a whole truffle, like a whole black truffle, and just keeps shaving it, man. Shaving it. And this black truffle pasta is loaded with truffle. Oh my God, one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. So decadent and rich and delicious, man. I thought I liked truffle, but having the real deal truffle, oh yeah, that's the one, you know. And then we did try the al antico sandwich, which you may have seen before. It's quite a famous thing. We tried it in Rome. Just as good as everybody says it is. We only had it one time, but it was phenomenal. We had one with a porchetta and like a potato cream and a cheese cream. It was so good. The bread is crunchy and fluffy. The ingredients are super high quality, and it's a gigantic sandwich for like around 10 euros. I think less than 10 euros. Incredible value. People may say it's touristy, but it's totally worth it. I know it's from Florence, but we got it in Rome. I'm pretty sure it's pretty similar. You know, it's the same brand and everything. And then gelato. Of course, gelato. We had gelato like every single day we were in Italy. Sometimes even twice a day. And I have no regrets. I'm super glad we got as much gelato as we did because it was phenomenal. And it may sound a little bit ridiculous, but over time, as you try more and more gelato, you really do start to be able to discern, you know, between the different quality of gelato, whether it comes to their, you know, creation process or their ingredients or the flavors they have to offer. You start to really notice the different levels of gelato. And pro tip, you want to go to the gelato places where you can't actually see the gelato in the window. Like they're inside these metal canisters with a lid on top to keep them fresh. That's how you know they're using artisanal or artigianale ingredients and a process to keep everything fresh, and they're not using too many preservatives to just, you know, stack it high in the window to attract tourists. I'm not saying that those places that have it out for the tourists to see are going to be bad, because that's not true at all. Some of them are just as good and are just as artisanal, but if you see a place that has them in the canisters, there's a good chance that that will be a high quality gelato place. So look out for that and try to steer clear of the ones where they're piled high right in the heart of the tourist district, because that probably won't be the best gelato in the area. But yeah, the gelato in general was so incredible. It's so creamy and rich and like full flavored. Man, that's definitely one of the things I miss most about Italy. And then as far as the city itself and the sightseeing and stuff we did, we went to the Roman Forum, which was very cool. You know, it really helps to have an audio guide to kind of like explain to you what you're looking at, so you can imagine what's going on there and what the scene used to look like, you know, back in the ancient Roman days. We didn't actually go inside the Colosseum because it's so crazy busy there, and I've heard it's really overrated. I don't know, but I don't feel like we really missed out. We saw it from the outside quite a lot as our place was located right nearby, and that was definitely enough for me. And beside that, I would say the main stuff we went to see a lot of were a lot of different churches or basilicas, because they are all over the city and they are full of like magnificent artwork. I do want to preface that by saying, like, I am 100% not religious, was not raised religious, in no way associate with any religion. So I'm not Catholic, I'm not Christian or anything like that. And yet I was still blown away by all of these churches and would highly recommend you going to see them also, even if you're not religious, because the sheer scale and magnitude and quality of the artwork on display in these places is insane. It's mind-blowing. I mean, one of our first days there, we just happened to stumble upon this church in like sort of downtown Rome, the Papal Basilica of St. Mary. And it's stunning. I mean, from the gigantic vaulted ceilings to the stained glass to all of the paintings and sculptures and domes, it's mind-blowing. I mean, you have to pass through a security checkpoint to get in this place, but it's totally free, and like the place is incredible. And then, you know, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, because shortly after that, we went to Vatican City. We went to St. Peter's Basilica. Oh man, I'm telling you, this place is on another level. First, you walk into the courtyard and it's breathtaking to see these massive, gigantic pillars with statues of like Michelangelo's top 140 saints on them. And then you see, the church, the basilica itself, and it's so gigantic and it looks beautiful from the outside. But then you go inside, oh man, my mind was so blown. I mean, first thing you see is Michelangelo's sculpture of Jesus and Mary. And then that's just the little opening entrance act, because once you walk into the foyer and you see the whole church opens up to you, it's massive. It's like statue after statue after statue, and all of these statues are like 15 to 20 feet tall. You have a whole bunch of paintings that are like 30 feet tall, and there's this absolutely gigantic bronze black canopy made by Bernini that sort of ascends and spirals upward to the crowning dome, which was architected by Michelangelo in his like later years. The place is just, there are no words to describe this place. It's the single greatest piece of art that I have ever seen, aside from the Sistine Chapel, which we saw later that day. This place is unlike anything you have ever seen or ever been to. Well, at least for me it was. Like, my jaw was like on the floor the entire time. And again, it really helps to have an audio guide. I would recommend this one called Rick Steves Audio Guide, which actually is available for free on whatever app store of your choice. He's very knowledgeable and provides a lot of good context, and he has a bunch of guides for all over Europe. Anyway, we were there, and man, it's just magnificent, incredible, jaw-dropping, unbelievable. The level of quality of these pieces of art. I mean, you have to go there. I mean, if you're in Rome, if you're in Vatican City, you have to go there. I can't believe that it's like free to go to. And the security checkpoint, it seems like the line was super long, but it actually goes pretty quick. Even though we felt like we were really far away, I would say it only took us like 20 to 30 minutes to get inside. They do have a dress code, they say. Like, you can't wear shorts. You have to have your legs covered and your shoulders are covered. But they were giving out these little like shawls for women to cover their shoulders if they were wearing like tank tops or something. And I saw guys in there with shorts, so maybe they're not really that strict about it. But there are signs posted in a lot of places that say they won't let you in if you're not following the dress code. Just something to be aware of. I don't know. And then after that, we went to the Vatican Museum, which is like, it's unbelievable. The place is so insane. It's full. It's like full, so full of artwork. I've never in my life experienced a museum that had such a rich catalog of art. Paintings, sculptures, vases, baths, like anything and everything in between. It's at the Vatican Museum. And it's like, the way that it's set up is it's actually kind of just like a big maze. And they're kind of just like constantly herding you through this maze so that you can get to the Sistine Chapel, which is at the very end of it. And it's like, after a whole day of like, getting to Vatican City, going to St. Peter's Basilica, standing in line to get into the Vatican Museum, going through room after room after room of like insane levels of artwork, you start getting this like crazy like art fatigue where like, on one level, that you're looking at some of the greatest artwork ever commissioned and created by human beings. But on another level, you're just so drained mentally from everything and you're just being herded. Like, they don't even let you stop in a lot of these rooms. They're like, keep going. And you're just like, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. I know that it's crazy and I would like to spend more time looking at this, but like I just gotta get through it. Once you start getting near the end is when you start seeing these like massive paintings done on the actual walls and ceiling of the Vatican Museum. And that was because back then the Pope would actually commission the greatest artists of the Renaissance to paint these paintings. And that's where the original School of Athens from Raphael is. And it was mind-blowing to see that in person. It's gigantic. It's enormous. Like the people in that painting are larger than an actual person. So that was really cool because that's one of my favorite paintings. I'm a big fan of ancient Greece. Anyway, then you finally get to the Sistine Chapel. You finally get there. And at first it's like, okay, is this really going to be worth it? And then you get there and you look up and it's like, bam, like it just like hits you like a bolt of lightning. Like this is quite possibly the single greatest work of art that any human has ever created. And like, you know, it sounds like an overstatement, but when you're there staring up at it, I was just totally amazed, like overwhelmed, could not believe what I was looking at, that Michelangelo himself painted this thing. You know, I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because, you know, you guys can look up more of the history if you want, and I'll talk about it more in that specific vlog. But let me tell you, it is mind-blowing. I've never seen anything like that. And it's pretty crazy because the way he painted the figures, it's like they actually pop out at you, like they're 3D, which is like insane when you consider how old these things are and that they're done by a single guy. You know, it's great if you have, you know, the audio tour and you listen to it because he explains, you know, the history behind it, how it came to be, why things look the way they do. And it is just phenomenal. So that day, St. Peter's Basilica plus the Sistine Chapel, it honestly kind of ruined some of the rest of the trip because it's such a high peak. Like those two things combined in the same day like blew my mind completely out of this universe. And I couldn't even believe that I was able to go and see these things, these like life-changing works of art. It's totally on another level, and it's kind of unbelievable that they even exist. It's amazing. Anyway, moving on. The last big thing we did while we were in Italy was we took a day trip to Florence. And let me tell you, Florence, gorgeous city. We kind of regretted that we only spent one day there because it is so beautiful. So beautiful. Like, I think Rome is beautiful in the way that there are a lot of like ancient ruins and you can really feel the history of the place. But aside from all of that, it's honestly a little bit dirty. And there are just so many tourists everywhere. It gets, you know, kind of claustrophobic, and like people can be like really rude and just kind of stand in the way and everything like that. And so, you know, heading up to Florence was sort of like a breath of fresh air. It was like, of course it was still busy, but you felt like you had a little bit more room to breathe, a little bit more room to walk around. The architecture of the entire city is stunning, and it's right on the water. It gives you these beautiful, gorgeous views. We went to the Uffizi Gallery, saw, you know, some originals from like Da Vinci and Michelangelo and so on. I mean, the Uffizi was awesome, but it is a bit of a step down after you go to the Vatican Museum. But it's still a great museum to visit, and the city of Florence is just so dang beautiful. They have this one main church there, which like the architecture is just, I'm running out of words. I don't even know how to describe these things anymore. I feel like I'm just saying the same words over and over, but it really is stunning. Caught some pictures in golden hour and stuff too. And then we had, you know, dinner there, and then went back. And yeah, after that was all settled and everything, we finally made our way over to Paris. So we got to Paris and we got to our Airbnb, and it just so happened it was like right in the middle of their sort of like little Tokyo district, like their Asian district, which was perfect for us because I just desperately needed some rice and noodles and things like that. So while the Asian food there wasn't spectacular, it wasn't like being in Japan, it was pretty dang good and definitely filled the craving. Plus our Airbnb was like really nice, very bright and airy and open, perfect location, and while the elevator was small, it didn't feel like I was gonna get trapped inside of it. It was nice and modern and clean, which was very nice. But yeah, it was sort of like another almost like cultural whiplash heading from Rome to Paris, because in comparison, Paris feels much more modern. It feels similar to Tokyo in a lot of ways, a very modern and updated metro system, much easier to use and much more connected than the one in Rome. I can understand in Rome, the city is extremely old. There are a lot of ruins. There's a lot of roadblocks to building new things because you're constantly running into old things. And then those old things need to be like preserved and looked at by archaeologists and so on and so on. So it makes progress and updating very difficult. So going to Paris was sort of like a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways. It was much cooler, like 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler, which was a huge difference. It went from being like pretty warm in Rome to being pretty chilly in Paris, which was really nice because we actually brought a lot of cold weather clothes. But yeah, it just felt really nice. We're more of the people that enjoy our modern amenities. And so it was nice to go to a city where it was a lot more navigable using the train system. And, there's a lot of like different restaurants around, a lot of different cultures and ethnicities, all sort of mixed together. I felt that Rome was a lot more homogeneous than Paris was. And there were definitely many less Asian tourists in Rome, Asians in general in Rome than in Paris. So we definitely stuck out a lot more in Rome. Which is how I imagine Europeans feel when they travel to Japan. We sort of feel the opposite. So it was interesting to get, sort of like the shoe on the other foot. But once we got to Paris, we sort of blended in a lot more because it's such a big melting pot of different cultures that we just look like normal, citizens there, which is nice for us. We like to sort of blend in. We don't like to stick out and be, like the ones that people look at differently. But yeah, in Paris, everything is much more modern. There's this store called Monoprix, which is very similar to like Target in the US, which was nice because there were a lot of like little things we needed, and it was just really convenient to be able to go to a local place that just had it all there. Things you sort of overlook, especially when you go to like Japan and there's like kombini everywhere. That's like super convenient. There are like giant shopping malls. There's even Muji's there, which like Muji is one of our favorite stores in Japan. So it's nice to have a little slice of that. A wide variety of different restaurants and cuisines available, which was nice. So what were some of the highlights of the Paris trip? Where we were located was very near the Louvre, as well as the Tuileries Garden. I'm sorry, my French accent is awful, so I'm gonna butcher, the pronunciation of a lot of these things. But that garden is beautiful, and it was just a short walk away from our place, and we spent some time there walking around, taking in the sights. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to just like walk around and just like explore the city and like see what it had to offer. We went to this one interesting bakery called Aki Bakery, where they have sort of like Japanese French fusion patisserie. I tried like their cream melon pan, and we tried their anbata waffle and onko beignet. But I guess in French, beignet just really means donut. And what I would say is also in general, we found that people were like much kinder to us in Paris. I don't know exactly why that is. You know, I don't like to make broad generalizations about different cultures, especially when I've only been there for a few days. But all of the Parisians we met, all of the French we talked to were very nice to us, like very kind, very accommodating, very helpful. We did not experience that like French rudeness that many people talk about whatsoever, really. Everybody we talked to was very nice to us, and we actually experienced much nicer and more patient service than we did in Rome. And, you know, I'm sure there are a million factors that go into that, but that was just our experience. A good example of that was we just so happened to sort of like stumble upon this crepe shop. It just had like good reviews on Google, and we wanted to try some different French food, so we stopped in, and it turned out it was run by this one guy who's also the chef, and it's a very small, you know, hole in the wall kind of place. And he was so chill and cool and nice. And, you know, he's kind of like chatted us up a bit. And, you know, he gave us some recommendations on what to order. And then, you know, I liked his music. He was playing like this like 90s French hip hop. And he had like a bunch of CDs and cassettes on display. And he like DJs. He picks his own music from his own collection. And just a really chill guy. And then, like, you know, I asked him if I could take some shots with my big camera of him cooking the crepes, and he's like, oh yeah, please do. So I did, and he was so nice. You know, he offered us a free dessert crepe with his homemade caramel sauce, which was delicious, so good. The crepe was super soft, the caramel sauce was like perfectly sweet, and the couple of savory crepes we got were also amazing. I would definitely recommend you check that place out. That guy is awesome and totally a pillar of his community, because people would come in, you know, get stuff to go, talk to him, you know, just give him a hug. Kids would come by asking for candy. He would give them like free candy just for stopping in, seeing how they're doing. Really chill guy. You should definitely check that place out. We had these incredible pastries, croissant, pain au chocolat at Blé Sucre. This small, pretty well-known patisserie, and best croissant, best pain au chocolat I've ever had, for sure. We even got their hot chocolate, which was awesome. What else? Oh yeah, Blend Burger. I think it's like a small chain, or maybe it's family owned. I'm not sure, but they have a few different restaurants in Paris. Man, this burger was incredible. I got the Camembert burger. It's like a gourmet burger, you know, gourmet ingredients, amazing bun, and they put this giant slab of camembert on there. Oh man, it was so good. It was like perfectly rich and creamy, and, you know, just had that depth of flavor. My wife got the classic smash burger, just super high quality ingredients. The fries were awesome there too. Would definitely recommend that place. We did a little bit of a Macaron Throwdown. You know, we tried La Durée versus Pierre Hermé. Both expensive, but both totally worth it. I think they're both very good, and the quality of each is about the same. I think Pierre Hermé, their flavors are a little more unique and interesting. So if you want to try something a little bit different, Pierre Hermé is the way to go. But you really can't go wrong either way. We went to this really fancy grocery store called La Grande Epicerie, and it's kind of like Erewhon in the US. Very bougie, very high end, but they have like different departments for like your, you know, cured meats, your cheeses, like Asian section, a whole patisserie section, like pretty much everything there is like very high end, you know, upscale ingredients, that kind of stuff. Really cool place to check out. What else? We actually ate a bunch of good Asian food in Paris. There are some places that have really high-end omakase sushi courses. We didn't try that. A little too expensive for us, plus need to reserve them like way in advance. But we did try this hand roll place, which was very good. I had some quick service takeaway. We tried a ramen place. Overall, the Asian food scene in Paris is legit. You know, I heard through the grapevine they really love Japanese culture, which is why there's like a large Japanese presence there. And a lot of the places we went were run by legitimate Japanese people. You know, they were clearly native Japanese speakers. It was very interesting to hear them switch from Japanese to French to English. You know, we even heard a woman who spoke Japanese with a French accent. That was the first time I ever heard that. Very interesting. And then aside from that, you know, the sort of main places we visited Versailles, which was awesome. You got to go to Versailles, right? It was kind of crazy to actually go there and see the places, walk through the rooms, see all the giant paintings, you know, see the gigantic garden and the, you know, recreation of Venice, like the little canals they have. It's huge. It's a cool place to go for sure. Very ornately decorated, very well preserved. And you really get an understanding of why, you know, the peasants revolted. It's egregious. But really cool place to go. Of course, we went to the Louvre, which was awesome. Amazing artwork, of course. Not quite as incredible as the Vatican Museum, but as opposed to the Vatican Museum, it was nice to have like space and time to just sort of wander through without like feeling so rushed and like constantly herded through each room. Like you could really take your time and absorb the work that you're seeing, and it wasn't too busy. Like of course it was busy, but it wasn't like wall-to-wall people. You could really find your own little pocket and just look at the works you wanted to look at, which was very nice. And of course they have their own wide assortment of very famous things. We saw the Hammurabi's Code, which was crazy. Saw Gilgamesh, crazy. You know, we saw Lady Liberty leading the French Revolution, the Raft of Medusa, Venus de Milo. Cool stuff, really cool stuff there. Louvre, it's amazing, you know it. Totally worth it, very worth it. And then the last museum we went to was the Musée de l'Orangerie. And the last museum we went to was the Musée de l'Orangerie, which was like mainly focused on Impressionists, like Monet. It has his giant installation where it's like the water lilies. It's like a couple of different rooms, and his paintings are like massive and take up the whole wall space, which was really cool. It was really cool to be there. And you have a lot of rooms. You could sort of just like immerse yourself in the art. Impressionism, and particularly Monet, is one of my favorites. So that was a really cool place to go and to actually like see and be like sort of in the art. Plus they had this revolving exhibit there, which featured a ton of Picasso, which I never really sort of engaged with Picasso on that level before. And to see so many of his originals there, especially them stacked up sort of side by side so you could see the progression of his artwork over time. I think that was the first time I would say that I really began to understood what Picasso was about and like why, you know, he's so lauded, you know, in art history and the world over. I felt a sort of connection to Picasso inside of that museum, which was really cool. It was nice to have that experience and be able to, you know, firsthand view his artwork, especially, you know, one after the next, seeing his progression over time and the way he would sort of push the boundaries and redefine, you know, what we consider to even be art, and how he would recontextualize, you know, a lot of the sort of political, social misgivings of his time through his artwork. Really cool stuff. But yeah, I would say those were sort of the big things we did in Paris. Of course, we walked around more. We tried some more pastries and stuff. But unfortunately, my wife was sick right when we got there. She got sick, and it kind of persisted for like 3 or 4 days. We're only there for a week. So that kind of put a little bit of a damper on things and restricted our ability to, you know, move around a lot. But I think, she still had a good time. Overall, we definitely had a good time in Paris and in the trip in general. It was a lot to take in, and the culture is very different in a lot of ways. What I will say is I don't think that Europeans in general are more or less rude than Americans. I think people in general are just kind of rude. It's just that over time, when you live in a place long enough, you get used to a certain way of doing things. And so what you would consider rude is different than what someone else in a different culture would consider rude. And so when things like that happen, it sticks out more in your mind because to you that's unusual and you mark it as rude. But overall, I'm really glad for the experience, and it was really interesting, getting to go to these different cultures and meet all these different people and talk to different people and to experience what life is like in a just totally different part of the world. And it was a great trip. We are definitely looking forward to going back to Europe sometime in the future. Not sure exactly when. It will probably be to other places, but it was a great trip and full of art, really, like full of this incredible art and so inspiring in a lot of ways. And I am looking forward to sharing a lot of that with you guys in the full vlogs to come. Tim in Europe sometime in the future. Just real quick, little 1 minute thing. I wanted to mention my top 5 bites of the trip. Number 5, I would say, were the pastries at Sucre. Number 4 was the blend burger. Number 3, the Roman pasta. Number 2, the duck confit. And number 1, that black truffle pasta in Florence. That was a life-changing bite of pasta. Honorable mention, the onion soup at a couple different restaurants in Paris. They don't call it French onion soup there, it's just onion soup. My God, it's amazing. So good. Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff. It's a lot. It's like, I think I'm at already an hour. Hopefully it's less at this point, because hopefully I can kind of pare it down a little bit. But that, in a nutshell, was Europe 2024. If you're still watching, thank you. It was a lot to go through, I know. So, aside from that, there are a couple things I just wanted to talk about the channel, about life, about whatever, whatever's coming up and stuff. So finally got back home about a week ago as of the time of this filming. I feel like I've spent the last week just doing chores and errands and cleaning up the house and unpacking and washing stuff and blah, blah, blah. And it's the post-trip blues, kind of setting in. So many chores to take care of, but I finally feel like I'm kind of reacclimating. I've been able to go on a few runs, which was nice. I'm still not at my pre-COVID levels. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I didn't mention. I got COVID right before we left on the trip. Luckily, I recovered before we left, mostly recovered. I definitely wasn't sick anymore, but maybe just a little bit of lingering, side effects. But yeah, I had COVID, which was why the videos were a little sparse before the trip, and then went on the trip, and now I'm back. And then so I'm a little bit out of conditioning when it comes to running, but I'm slowly getting back into the swing of things. It's helping to regulate, my mood, my physicality, all of that stuff, which is nice. As far as the channel goes, I did want to mention the more copyright issues I had, while I had COVID. It was lame. So the YouTube camp video got copyright blocked. That's why it's gone. That one's just gone. Nobody can watch that one. It wasn't a strike, which is the one little silver lining. I didn't get in trouble for it. My channel wasn't put in danger, but it sucks because only a couple hundred people got to watch it in the first week, and then bam, it's just gone. The Perfect Days video was copyright blocked partially. So what that means is I did not get a strike. People can still watch it and are still watching it, and it is bringing in new subscribers, which is great. But it was demonetized, or rather, should I say, the monetization was hijacked, so to speak. The copyright holder of the movie put a copyright claim on that video, so I cannot monetize the video. So, it still helps the channel, brings in new people, but I'm not making any money from it, which is kind of lame. Yeah. So anyway, though, what are you going to do? But that does sort of lead me into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is like the future of the channel and like the sorts of videos that are coming up. So, aside from like Tim in Japan, Tim in Europe, Tim Explains Japan, aside from that stuff, obviously the other main content of the channel are the video essays. And so the conclusion I've come to in regards to the video essays is that the format needs to change. So I can no longer do video essays about like media where I only use clips from the media. Like for instance, the Perfect Days video or something similar. I can no longer make video essays where I only use clips from that movie or show or whatever, because it's just too risky. Like it's too risky to get these copyright claims and blocks and strikes and whatever that one may put the channel in jeopardy, or two, make it impossible for me to make any money off of the videos, because I'm just being honest, if I can't make any money doing this, then I cannot continue doing this. It doesn't make any sense anymore. This is supposed to be like something that is self-sustaining, because this is my full-time job. So what that means is going forward, I need to sort of revamp the direction when it comes to these video essays. So I think, of course, there needs to be clips used in the video essays. Like, of course, you have to know what I'm talking about, and you need to, show relevant clips and stuff, but I'll need to intercut them with like footage of me talking like this, maybe other forms of media or graphics or things like that. The format is going to change in some way, and there's probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve to that. It's going to be a little bit of a time before I like settle into how I want the format to look and sound and be experienced and things like that. But I did want to give you guys a heads up. Please be patient with the new videos and stuff coming out. It's sort of a chaotic time creatively in the channel. But I do feel like, coming back from this Europe trip, whether it's the experience of the trip or the artwork or just the sort of mental evolution I've been going through lately, I kind of feel like this book ends, part of the Tim Thoughts journey into like a new branch of the journey. It'll be these new video essays, it'll be an evolution in the quality of the vlogs and so on. Like I may even start doing some more different kind of videos that I've never tried before, but we'll see. This is an evolutionary time in the channel, and there's probably not going to be a ton of videos from now until the end of the year because we have the holidays and everything, and the holidays are always like super busy. But I'm hoping that when the new year comes, I can sort of hit the ground running, and I would really like to publish videos more frequently in the new year and like grow the channel more, bring in new viewers, new subscribers, new people in the Discord, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the update stuff. I think it's very nebulous right now. I know I didn't really explain a lot in detail, but I did want to give you guys just sort of a heads up of like what's going on and what to expect in the future, and what to expect as far as like when videos will come out and things like that. As usual, if you want more like regular updates, or you just want to like, figure out what's going on in my life and stuff, you can come by the Discord, check me out on Instagram. The Discord is great. It's more lively than ever. We have a bunch of people there, and it's a great, sort of like wholesome place to just, check out what's going on. A little bit of memes, a little bit of laughs, a little bit of goofs and gaffs. And that's where I generally talk more in depth about the process and what's going on in my life and things like that. Plus, if you are a creative in any capacity, whether it's, videos or music or anything you're working on, feel free to go over there and share what you're working on in the Grow Together channel. Great place to meet fellow like-minded individuals. And it's just like a warming, wholesome community space where everyone's welcome. Instagram, by the way, if you wanted to check out more of my Europe stuff, I posted most of what we did in stories, which I also have linked in my profile. You can catch the replays of everything there. If you're interested, check it out. But yeah, this video is like way super long. So hopefully I can cut it down a little bit to a manageable amount. But that was basically the big brain dump of everything that happened on the Europe trip, and just kind of what I've been thinking about lately with the channel and stuff. I think we are entering a new stage, a new phase, a new evolutionary chapter of Tim Thoughts. Hopefully, better than ever, whatever that means. But hopefully it is. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, thank you. I don't know, I'm surprised, but so thankful, because it's only because of you guys that any of this is possible in any capacity. And like, I don't know, if you've been around for a long time, maybe you feel the way I do, but it feels insane that we are kind of, creeping up on that 10K number. That's just like unbelievable to me. I remember when I felt like I couldn't even get 100 subscribers. So 10K is like, what? I don't even know, man. It's wild. Oh yeah, the other thing I did want to mention about videos coming up is, okay, I don't want to say too much, but I have really seriously been considering taking some of the old videos like Forgotten Ghibli, the stuff that has been copyright blocked or claimed or whatever, and reshooting them, re-recording, re-editing in this new format I'm talking about. And I can re-release them with updated audio, updated video, and, for a whole new audience. Forgotten Ghibli 2.0. I'm kind of thinking about rebranding that too, to make it a little bit less copyright prone, maybe even merch friendly. I've been toying with the name Forgotten Hanashi. Hanashi means story in Japanese. So yeah. Anyway, that's really it though. That was the last thing I wanted to mention. I just forgot. I was gonna say that earlier. But yeah, thank you guys again. I don't even know how I've gotten this far. It's not possible without you guys. The love and support from the community is, I have no words. I am beyond grateful. Thank you guys, seriously. I could not be here or be doing any of this without you, and I am constantly in awe of how compassionate and kind and wonderful all of you lovely people are out there. So, yeah, I won't embarrass you any further. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.